Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're well and you've had a good couple of weeks. Mine have been friend-filled and lots of fun. A couple of weekends ago, we went up to Congleton in Cheshire for the day and night. Our friends there are getting married next year and the preparations continue to ramp up. This weekend we were going because my girlfriend is the chief bridesmaid and they were going to order with the bride the wedding dress and select the colours for the bridesmaid dresses. So the bridesmaids and the bride were all meeting up to go to the bridal shop, and let's be honest, us boys did not want to miss out on a weekend of fun, so we all decided to tag along and go and see both of our friends for the weekend. It all worked out rather nicely. Linda and I drove up on the Saturday. Well, I say Linda and I. Linda drove and I sat in the passenger seat. We always, and I have mentioned this before, have a slight conflict with each other when we are on longer car journeys. We both like completely different types of music when we're traveling in the car, so that one never really works. So we're slowly working our way through various podcasts and BBC Radio 4 comedies to pass the time. We're big fans of It's a Fair Cop with Alfie Moore, and for this latest trip I managed to get a couple of episodes of I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue on the table, which I think Linda enjoyed. Anyway, we had a good journey up despite meeting a bit of traffic. Our other friends that were also travelling up and we were meeting there had organised our accommodation for the night. One of them seems to have some sort of magic for finding Airbnb places that are really good to stay. Linda and I had a look for some in the Congleton area and couldn't find any, and our friend managed to book us this fantastic 2-bed apartment right in the centre of the town. Could not have been more perfectly placed. We got there at exactly the agreed time, and the couple who were getting married met us as we parked up at our accommodation because they just happened to be walking past at that point. We then headed to what they call the Market Quarter, which is a selection of bars and food places in the open in an area which, funnily enough, used to be the market. So we got there and had a drink. The other couple who we were staying with and who were joining us for the weekend turned up about half an hour later. So we were enjoying a drink in the sun and a good catch up. Then it was time for the ladies to disappear and go to the bridal shop to help select the wedding dress and sort out the colours, at least, of the bridesmaids' dresses. That just left us gentlemen in the pub. We did have to check into the Airbnb, so we went off and managed to transfer all the bags from the cars into the apartment and get everything set up for later. We then found our way to another pub which had a lovely beer garden and found a table there. We'd only had probably a drink there when the ladies turned up after their bridal experience. That was a complete success because it was yet another gloriously sunny and warm day. We did spend a few more hours in the beer garden chatting and drinking. Then we decided to go back to the Airbnb for the evening, picking up some drinks from the supermarket on the way. We just ordered a takeaway pizza from Domino's, mainly my fault because they do a gluten-free pizza which I can have. It is about half the size of the normal pizzas and about twice the price, but that is pretty standard form when you are a celiac like me and have to eat gluten-free food. That does happen more often than you think. We had a great evening just chatting and laughing and enjoying our pizzas. I have got no willpower whatsoever. I tend not to keep chocolate or crisps in my house because if I do, they will disappear very quickly. However, if I'm in a room where somebody opens a packet of crisps, once those crisps are open, all bets are off. I can't stop picking at them until the whole bag is gone. And that well and truly happened that night. I think there were a couple of big bags on the go, and we'd already had some crisps in the pub earlier on, so it wasn't a particularly healthy night food-wise, but had a great time. Next morning, the couple that we were staying with had to get up and go relatively early. Linda and I had time to take a more relaxed approach to getting home, so we checked out of the Airbnb and went and found ourselves a cafe where we had eaten before when we'd been in Congleton, so I knew they could look after me. We actually got there 5 minutes before it opened, but they had the doors unlocked and very kindly let us come in and sit down at a table. As soon as they did open, I did go up and order. They did me a brilliant eggs Benedict with mushrooms and bacon, which was fantastic. They also had gluten-free cake, so I did treat myself to a huge slice of their gluten-free red velvet cake. That was perfect and set me up nicely for the day. On the way home, the in-car entertainment for most of the journey was a Teach Yourself Spanish course, which Linda had listened to before. The reason we were doing that was the following weekend we were going to see our friends who have a house just outside Alicante and are staying there for the entire summer. So we thought we might try and learn a bit of Spanish. I thought the way the guy was introducing the language and getting you to learn it on the podcast was really good. However, sadly, I was struggling to pick it up. He went through lots of very useful and simple phrases and explained how a lot of words in English, their origins are actually from Spain. So it's quite easy to work out how to say them in Spanish if you know the English word you're looking for. Even with that information, I still struggled. Linda was very good at it and picking it up a lot quicker than me. I didn't really learn anything. I seemed to be able to repeat it at the time when we were doing it in the car, but more or less the second we got home and got out the car, I seemed to have forgot everything that I'd actually learned. We were treating ourselves to a long weekend in Spain. Our friends who have a house over there very kindly invited us there. We went there for a weekend last year and we managed to extend the stay a little bit this year in that we flew out very early on the Thursday morning, which did mean my alarm went off at 3 a.m. I am actually pretty good at getting up in the morning. I put this down to the fact that I did a morning paper round 6 days a week from the age of 11. So from a very early age, I was used to having to get up as soon as my alarm went and get myself to work. So I managed that no problem. It also reminded me of when I was working as a studio manager for the BBC, because some of the shifts we had would start at 4:30, so I'd have to be up at 3 a.m. for them. So I had got myself up and about. Linda may have got up slightly later than me, but still managed to be ready for the 4 a.m. taxi, who was absolutely bang on time. We went to Luton Airport. We only had hand luggage for the trip, so we did not need to check anything into the plane. So it was straight through the fast track security that Linda had sorted out for us and straight through to the departures area where we were just waiting basically for the gate to come up. I had already bought myself a gluten-free sandwich ready for the journey. The plane left on time, and actually they made very good time. I think the flight time was almost under 2 hours in the end from Luton to Alicante, which was perfect because it was an early 6 a.m. flight with the time difference to Europe at the minute. We actually landed at about 9:30. We were a little concerned it might take a while to get in, as it was the first time we were going to do the biometric fingerprinting, but I must say at Alicante Airport it was very well organised. They had lots of staff on and lots of machines. I was a little bit concerned at one point though, because it was the first time I had used my new passport, and when I tried to put it into the automatic biometric machine, initially it wouldn't read it. Then one of the guys working there had a go. He couldn't make my passport be read, so we thought it might be the machine, so he moved me onto a different machine. I tried that again, the passport did not work, and then eventually he came over to that machine and somehow managed to get it to work. So you scan your passport in, and then on the other side you do the 4-finger fingerprint. Once that's done, you're free to go, you're fine, and you're on your way. It was all really quick. I think we got through that and the normal passport control in about 15 minutes. My friend Steve was there already waiting for us at the airport with a lovely homemade sign that his daughter had prepared for us, which was fantastic. It was such a lovely welcome. Always great to see him. We have been friends since our first day at our primary school when we were both 4 years old. So as you can imagine, we get on really well. He very kindly took us back to their house. On the way there, you pass these salt lakes, which actually have lots of wild flamingos on them, which is very odd as you drive by to see them. He said recently they had been flying over his house quite late at night in very large numbers in V-shaped formations and quite low. I didn't get to see that when I was out there, but I bet that is quite an amazing sight. As we arrived at his place, his wife and daughter were in the garden having a drink, so we joined them. I am extremely English wherever I am in the world. Therefore, the first thing I wanted was a nice cup of tea. So I had a nice relaxing cup of tea in the sunshine. And at that point, we're just catching up, chatting to each other, enjoying the weather. It was very, very hot. They've had a bit of work done to their garden and had some astroturf grass put in a couple of places, which has given them more seating areas and more space to enjoy their fantastic front garden. They, as part of the complex they own on, have access to a community swimming pool. So early afternoon, we went round there for a soak in the pool. There was hardly anybody else in there when we went in. The pool, because the weather has been so hot in Spain for a very long time, it was actually like getting into a hot tub. You know, when you get into swimming pools, sometimes you edge your way in and you take a sharp intake of breath when you get in just above your waist. Well, that was not necessary. It was just like getting in a nice warm bath. So we spent quite a bit of time in there that afternoon and indeed over the whole weekend, which was fabulous. After we had done the pool, we headed back and Steve and his wife put on some food for us, which was really, really nice. And then after some drinks in the garden, we decided to go down to their local bar called Elegance to have a couple of drinks. They know the owner down there. He's always very friendly. We met him last time we were there. He's good fun, and he does make a very good cocktail. We tried a couple of his cocktails while we were there, and I must say I came back from his bar a lot merrier than I was when I went there after just 2 drinks. So I think he did a good job. Then, once back at Steve's, even though by this point I'd been up something like about 19-20 hours, we decided it was a good idea to open a bottle of red wine as we were having such a good time. He showed me this one he had in his cupboard that he said had been there for ages. It looked exactly like my favourite kind of wine, so we opened that and had some of that. Me thinking it was a really expensive wine because it looked like one and it definitely tasted like one. A few days later, we saw the same bottle of wine in one of the local supermarkets, and that bottle, which I really loved and thought was fantastic and expensive, was only about €350 a bottle. Bargain. Then, for some reason, all of a sudden, Steve and I, while we were reminiscing, suddenly decided to try and name everybody who was in our primary school class. And that was their first name and surname we were after. We rattled off quite a few, but we could tell there was a couple we were missing. Anyway, we went to bed in the end. In the morning, it just happened to be Steve and I up first, and we were making the morning drinks when he suddenly said he remembered another name which started me off, and we ticked a few more off. Basically, over a 2-day period, we did manage to name our entire primary school class, everybody's first and second names, which, bearing in mind it's been a while since we left that primary school, I was quite impressed with what we did there. Our friend's daughter was very excited on the Thursday night because a new Disney film was being released on the Disney Channel the next morning called Camp Rock 3. She had planned to be up at 9 a.m. when it was released to watch it, to try and be one of the first people to watch it. I somehow agreed that I would make sure she was up in time and I would watch it with her. In the end, because we were having such a great time on the Thursday, I was up for about 23 hours before I eventually got to bed, but I still set my alarm for 5 to 9, and when it went off, I got up, went upstairs, knocked on my friend's daughter's bedroom door to make sure she was up, ready, and then went downstairs. She came down a couple of minutes later, as did my mate Steve, and all 3 of us, with a nice cup of tea, watched Camp Rock 3 together. I had not seen the previous 2 films in the series, but it was all good fun. I quite enjoyed it. The plot may have been relatively obvious from the start. It wasn't too tricky to work out what was going to happen, but there were some nice cameos in it and some decent star names, and it was just a good, fun Disney feel-good film. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. We spent the rest of the day just hanging around the garden, enjoying the sunshine and spending some time in the pool. For that evening's entertainment, Steve's wife Louise had booked us a table at the same steak restaurant we went to when we were there the previous year, mainly because they're really good with celiacs, and it's a place where I know I could eat safely. So Steve very kindly drove us there. It was about 20 minutes away from the house. We had a table booked. It's such a nice place called the Patagonia Grill House. As it turned out, they'd sat us on exactly the same table that we were on the year before, which was a nice touch. Not sure if they did it on purpose. I think that was just coincidence. I ordered a glass of the house red wine, which was very nice. Linda had decided she wanted to try what the locals have as a kind of spritz afternoon refreshing drink, kind of the modern version of sangria. A lot of Spanish people now tend to drink tinto rano, which is basically red wine and lemonade, which is kind of a more of an afternoon gateway drink. But she gave that a try. I did have a sip of it. I would probably need to have some more before I pass judgment. As someone who really likes a good red wine, it just seems a bit odd putting some lemonade in it. That said, if it was a scorching hot afternoon, that would be a much more sensible drink than just a straight red wine. So I do kind of get it. It is predominantly a steakhouse, as you might have gathered from the name. So I had already decided I was going to have a steak. Also, when we were there last year, we had a jacket potato that came with this creamy garlic sauce, which we've been talking about for the last year. So I knew I was going to have that as well. My only decision was to decide what steak to go for. I did feel relatively hungry. It was a steakhouse. I knew it would be good. I think last year I had the entry level steak. I wanted to up the ante a bit this year, so I went for their 350 gram sirloin steak, and I was not disappointed. It came out perfectly cooked, but it was like a huge slab of meat along with my jacket potato and mushroom sauce. It went very well with the red wine that I had ordered, and I must say I thoroughly enjoyed it. It took me a fair while to get through the steak. There was a lot of it, but I managed to finish the whole meal. That said, unusually for me, I was a bit too full to worry about dessert. But with the size of that steak, I think it's understandable. They did offer us a limoncello shot on the house, which Linda, Louise and I took them up on. That was very nice and a good way to end the meal. Once we'd finished dinner, we went through a quick look around one of the shops down the road. They're shops which sell kind of everything, lots of touristy items, clothes, inflatables, jewellery, lots of random stuff, and they do like something phallic, it's fair to say. There were some interesting stress balls, bottle openers and key rings which you would really not want to give children. Let's put it like that. After we didn't actually buy anything in the shop, we headed home and had a couple of more drinks while just chatting and listening to music. Another perfect day in Spain. The next morning, the Saturday, we were up relatively early because we were going to the nearest town to have a look round their Saturday market. It was a really hot day, so we went early not only to avoid the crowds and make sure we can get parked, but also to get there before it got too hot. The market was huge. We had a really good look round there, and then we decided to use one of the cafes to have a drink. I'd already had some breakfast before we left the house, but the others needed breakfast. We found this place that had recently just opened, and they had a table for us inside which was near the aircon, which was good because it was already getting quite warm outside. Everybody else had cold drinks and I had a cappuccino. Everybody had toasties and I just still nursed my cappuccino, which was really nice. As it turns out, they had just opened this cafe a few days before. The guy who runs it is English. His wife who runs it with him is Italian, and I think it was definitely more of an Italian style cappuccino than a Spanish one. It was really nice, but one of the strongest ones I think I've ever had. After we'd been at the cafe for a while, we had another quick look round another part of the market, and then my friend's daughter wanted to go to an ice cream shop that she'd been to before last time they were there. As it happened, they did have some gluten-free ice cream, and they served not just in the cones but luckily in cardboard tubs. I do like a mint choc chip ice cream, very partial to that. they had one in there and it was gluten-free, so I had to try that. We all had some ice cream from there and ate it in the shade in the market square, which is another thing all the towns in Spain seem to have. Nice big market squares with loads of cafes around them and lots of seating. We were there at midday as the bells of the Catholic Church in the middle of the square were ringing. That was quite a spectacular sight. On the way back to the car, we popped in to yet another shop and I actually bought myself some shorts. I think they may have been large boy shorts. I'm a man who likes my clothes quite tight on the small side. These shorts said large, but they're quite tight on me. So I think they're large boys, but they do actually fit, and I was wearing them for the rest of the day. We also, on our way back to the house, stopped off in a huge supermarket. It sold absolutely everything. There was a few bits we wanted to pick up. I was looking to pick up some more gluten-free beer and to replace the bottle of red wine that I had drunk at my mate's place. I have never seen so much Rioja wine on a shelf in a supermarket. That is my favourite type of wine. No word of a lie. There were hundreds of different options. I was struggling to find the gluten-free beer within the beer, which I thought was quite odd because Spain are very good with gluten-free and with celiacs in general. I then stumbled across the gluten-free aisle where there was a selection of gluten-free beer. My favourite is the yellow label gluten-free Estrella, so I picked myself up some of that. Also, I spotted some gluten-free chocolate digestives, something else I don't get to have very often, and there were some chocolates muffins reduced, so I had to have them. I thought it was about time I treated myself a little bit, so I enjoyed both of them over the weekend. Steve's wife Louise is absolutely brilliant with me and my celiac disease. She had already got so much gluten-free food in for me in the house and was so careful and thoughtful when preparing and serving the food, so I was perfectly safe there food-wise the entire weekend. The planned highlight of our Saturday was a visit to a bar to see a Dolly Parton tribute. Steve, Louise and I are massive country fans. Linda not so much, but she was happy to come along for the ride. It was a bar that they hadn't been to before themselves, but they managed to find out about this event and secured as tickets. It was an all-ticketed event and sold out, so we done well to get in. As it happened, our reserved table was right at the front next to the stage. So Dolly, who was there sound checking, said hello to us and called us her VIPs as we sat down. Being a bar in Spain, they did have bottles of gluten-free Dora Dam, so I was sorted for my nighttime drinks. We just settled into the place, having a chat, and there was background music on while we were building up to the main event. It was table service, which I think is a great idea if you've got an act on, because then you've only got the bar staff wandering around distracting the singer. You haven't got people constantly walking back and forth going to the bar past them. Dolly came on in the full outfit, the wig, everything else you would associate with Dolly. She was really good. She had the voice off perfectly and had also clearly researched a lot of Dolly's chat from her live shows. During her third song in, which was Applejack, a song I know and like, she handed her Dolly tambourine to Steve for him to play along with. He done it for about 10 seconds, then passed it on to me. I, of course, needed no invitation to get involved, so I played the tambourine all the way through Applejack, and she did congratulate me and said I was really good at the end, which is quite good for me because I'm not always the best at keeping time, but I think it worked. It aided my enjoyment of the song anyway, even if it didn't do that for everybody else. After her first set, rather than going off stage, Dolly made sure she came round to every table and had a chat and had a picture with everyone, which was great and very good of her. And we've got those pictures off her Facebook page to keep, which is fantastic. And then she came back on and did another hour. It was a really fun night. She did all the big hits and lots of different songs that Dolly herself has covered on albums and on stage. It was really, really good. Would see her again if we're ever in the area. Thought she was fantastic. Then it was once again time to head back to my friend's house for a few more drinks, to listen to some more music, do some more dancing before bed. We had a relatively leisurely start to the Sunday. I actually got out first. I went and had a cup of tea in the sunshine in their garden, which was lovely. We then decided to go and play some crazy golf, which was good fun. It was very, very warm on the crazy golf course. Last time we were there, we went to a giant crazy golf course that honestly takes about 3 hours to get round. This one, because we were a bit tight of a time, was a more reasonable little, like you'd expect, crazy golf, all nice and compact. That was good fun. Went round there in about an hour and a bit, and I'm pleased and proud to say that I actually won, albeit only by one shot. It was very up and down. I had 2 holes in one, but also a maximum 7 at one of the other holes. It was quite even between all of us. We had a drink at the bar they had there afterwards. There are a lot of expats out in Spain, a lot of British people. The bar that we were in was serving full roast dinners. Now, I absolutely love a roast, but in that heat, I'm not sure that I could possibly manage one, but many people were having them. We just had time to go back to the house one final time, have a last meal together before it was time for us to head off to the airport. The whole family very kindly took us, so we got to say goodbye to them as we got out of the car and went into the airport. Flight home was fine. We were home by midnight. We only flew out there on the Thursday morning and flew back on the Sunday, but it did feel like we'd been out in Spain spending time with our mates for a very long time. It was a fantastic weekend, so much fun, great laughs, spending time with people we absolutely adore. That is it for now. Look after yourselves and each other. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.